Well, gee, I don't know. I really could go either way. I mean, this one is great at smashing, and this one's great at slashing. So, how can I choose? Hell, hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. I am just trying to decide if I had to go into the deepest, darkest jungles and go hand to hand with scorpions and spiders the size of a frisbee, which tool I would pack to handle that problem. And I'm, torn between going with a hatchet or a blade. But, maybe I just go the straight up old fashioned route and just take care of business. Remington 870 Police Magnum. I think that will handle just about any of the big bugs down in the rainforest. Anyway, I'm really excited to introduce this week's guest to you. This guy coming up is no stranger to traveling to the deepest, darkest places of the world in order to capture some compelling images, and I can't wait to share his stories with you. So without any further ado, let's get into this week's episode, shall we? Shooters, are you ready? Stand by. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to this week's episode of the Guns and Cameras podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Best, and today I am joined by a very special guest. This guy is an OG content creator for our industry, and I can almost guarantee you, if you've been paying any attention at all to what's happening in gun content on social media, you have seen some of his work. We are joined today with Morgan Gregory, aka just.instinct on Instagram. Morgan, how are you today? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Yeah, man. Just I don't know. I guess we can kind of start at the beginning. I mean, I kind of got in the industry different than probably most photographers or videographers did. I actually went to school for marketing and graphic design. Didn't touch a camera really until after college. I graduated top of my class and went to work pretty shortly after for a small branding and design company as a graphic designer for them. I've always been interested and involved in hunting and shooting. My grandpa was a big sportsman and outdoorsman growing up, and that kind of got me involved and interested in it. And this small branding company that I went to work for, they did a lot of work at the time in the hunting space specifically, stuff for like Realtree, Hoyt, Norman Ammunition, and a bunch of others. So that was really interesting to me. I didn't really, honestly, when I got into the industry, it was kind of by accident. I didn't really know that that was an option to work in that space, or it hadn't really occurred to me. So I went to work for them. All without trying to get negative or anything like that. It was a pretty toxic place to work. Wasn't run well at all. And after a few years, I finally said, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. It kind of blew up, and I left without a whole lot of notice. I was just like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. This makes no sense. And left without a plan. I was like, on my own, I'm like, well, don't know what I'm going to do now. Didn't have a plan. And so I took about 2 weeks to just like collect myself, figure out what I was going to do, what my plan was. I live out, I'm in Oregon. I'm in a kind of a rural part of Oregon. There's not a lot of other options for that type of work in my area, where I'm in ag country, it's a lot of agriculture, lumber, logging, stuff like that. There's not a ton of design, marketing, that type of work. One of the lucky things that worked out really well for me is while I was at that job, they had some camera equipment that nobody else knew how to use. They had a couple of 5D Mark IIs and some lenses that the owner had bought and never used. But they thought they should have them because they were doing a lot of marketing and branding work. And I started taking those home on the weekends, playing with them, messing with them, trying to figure out how to use them just because I thought it was interesting. Instagram was just kind of becoming a thing at that point, and I started posting some of that stuff. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed creating images. I still like the graphic design and marketing aspect of things, but I really enjoyed creating images. So um, I kind of got involved with that. Uh, and I actually shot a lot of, while I was still at that job, I shot a lot of advertising imagery that would end up in a bunch of the industry mags. All the NRA mags, Gray's Journal, um, Guns and Ammo, all that kind of stuff for like Norma and some different brands, Realtree and stuff. And I started to kind of get a name for myself a little bit. And so I left that company. Took about 2 weeks to try and figure out what I was going to do. I had no money. I was broke. And so after 2 weeks of thinking about it, I'm like, well, I really like this thing. There's no other options as far as going to work for someone. My parents had owned and operated a business my whole life growing up, so I'm like, well, maybe I can try and make this work on my own. Maybe I can make my own thing. So I took what little money I had. I went and bought a 5D Mark III, and I bought a 16 to 35 mil lens, 2.8. Why I bought that lens as my first lens, I don't know. It wasn't a terrible choice. It wasn't a great choice. 24 to 70 would have made a lot more sense, but whatever. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, so I picked up that and bought a computer, and I set up an office actually in my parents' old office. They'd retired. It was a tiny little office that they had. And I said, hey, like, I'll pay you rent. Can I use this space? Like, I got to try and figure out if I can make this happen. And they're like, yeah, yep, go for it. So I start working and just start connecting. And I had been very fortunate because of Instagram. I had Vortex Optics reach out to me. Actually, Jimmy Hamilton over there reached out to me through Instagram.
Nice.
It was still pretty fresh. Instagram was still fairly new. They were still a very new company at that point. And he said, "Hey man, I saw like I'd bought one of their scopes and I put them on a 6.5 to 284 custom bolt gun that I had, and I'd posted a couple photos of it on Instagram. I said, "Hey man, we really like your photos. Love to send you some stuff. Really appreciate the support." And that's how it kind of started. And over the years, I was able to, they've Vortex has supported me since day one. If it weren't for them, I probably wouldn't have made it, to be honest. Their team is just awesome people, really good people, and all of them have just went out of their way for me over the years and opened doors. And they started using me like crazy. I mean, it blew up.
Yeah.
They opened doors for me. I started shooting for Savage. Started shooting for a number of other large brands, and it was just really cool. It started to pick up speed. About 6 months in, I had something really interesting happen. I was still figuring out what I was doing, trying to figure out what this might become. Like, it wasn't successful yet, but I could see that it could be. Like, I was seeing like, hey, like might work. And it was right after Christmas, like 2 or 3 days after Christmas. I got a phone call out of nowhere. A guy named Chris calls me. Said, hey, I've seen your work, really like your stuff. He talks to me for like 20 minutes. It was kind of a weird conversation. He says, hey, I really like you. I'd like to hire you to help me produce a TV show on Sportsman's Channel. And I'm like, I don't have that experience. Number one, at that point, I didn't have really that experience. And number two, I had no idea who he was. I had never heard of this particular show that he was telling me about. So I'm sitting there like, okay, this is weird. And he offered me a fairly substantial amount of money over the phone after 20 minutes to do this. And I was like, didn't really take it seriously.
Yeah.
I kind of laughed. I said, "Man, I appreciate it, but I'm not really interested." And hung up the phone. Or actually, no. He said, "Well, can we keep you in mind?" I was like, "Well, you can do whatever you want. I don't care, And And hung up the phone, and I get a phone call like 3 days later. He said, "Hey, I think we can pay you to make it worth your time. Um, Here's our offer." And it was substantially more than their original offer. But we need to meet you tomorrow. And again, I have no idea who these people are. I have no idea what this show is. I don't know anything about it. And I laugh. I I jokingly say, if there's a plane ticket in my inbox in the next 45 minutes, I'll see you tomorrow.
Bro.
Yeah, yeah. And sure enough, 45 minutes later, there is a plane ticket in my inbox. And I'm just like sitting there like, okay, I mean, I guess I'm flying to Texas tomorrow. So I go to the airport, fly to Texas, get there, and I have no idea who I'm meeting. I don't know who these people are. I don't know where I'm going. I land in Corpus Christi, walk out of the airport. It's a small airport, and I'm kind of a car guy too. And I look down the block and I see a G-Wagon sitting there, and I'm like, that's pretty sweet. G-Wagons are, they're pretty badass rigs, and they're not cheap.
No.
120, $130,000 rigs, and looking at it, and I'm like looking around, going, oh, I don't know who's picking me up. And my phone rings, and it's the owner's wife, and she said, "Hey, I'm here to pick you up. I'm in the G-Wagon." Like right then, I'm like, okay, like something like this is something apparently. So I get in this G-Wagon, and she immediately just starts hitting me with like 20 questions, just nonstop, like background, what do you do, what do you specialize in, like all this, different questions. What do you like to film, like what, just everything.
Yep.
And this goes on for like a good, I don't know, 40 minutes probably. And pretty soon, like I'm like, I mean, I don't know who these people are. They may be taking me out in the desert to kill me for all I know, like traffic my organs or something. I have no idea. Finally, I ask her, I goes, "Where are we going?" She goes, "Oh, well, we're going to our ranch, or our private ranch." I go, "Oh, okay. Well, I've got a buddy with a ranch in Oregon. How big is your guys' ranch?" She goes, "Oh, well, we've been on it for the last 20 minutes." I go, "What?"
Holy
We're,
crap.
we're driving down a freeway at 75 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour.
Dude.
Okay. And then we pull up, 5 minutes later, we pull up to a gate, a huge gate, electric gate, opens up. We pull into, it's a mansion. There's no other way to describe it. Walk in to this day, the most impressive trophy room I've ever seen in my entire life. Make Bass Pro Shop and Cabela's blush. I mean, it's
Crazy.
it was incredible. And I look around. At this point, they could say anything. My answer is yes. I mean, it's just like, okay, yeah, whatever we're doing, yep, let's do it.
Dude.
Just incredible to see. In fact, that trophy room is in the top 10 trophy rooms of the World Book.
No way.
I mean, it's unbelievable. But anyway, we sit down, we meet, talk for a couple hours with their team. It was like, there were probably half a dozen of them producing this show. They wanted me to be one of the producers, help video it, everything. So met with them. They were great. I'm like, yep, let's do it. Let's go for it. So I start working for them. We start filming hunts regularly. We do the exotic slam in New Mexico. So Aoudad, ibex, and oryx. Pretty cool hunts. Film those. We film a bunch of hunts on their ranch in Texas: whitetail, turkey, pigs, stuff like that. Come the end of the year, I kind of see the writing on the wall. There were some things that I just saw it wasn't going to be a long-term thing. It was a super fun year. It was incredible. Like I lived there in Texas on their place for like 6 months that year. We go out and film during the day their hunts and different stuff, and then at night, after we ate dinner, we'd go out with thermals and suppressed AR-10s and bolt guns and just hammer hogs until midnight. And then we'd get up, go to bed, and then get up the next morning and do it all again. I did that for like 6 months. It was rad. super fun. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall at the end of that year, and during this time I was still keeping Just Instinct creative. I was keeping my business active, keeping it relevant. I was still doing a little bit of side work here and there as I had time. I had not abandoned that at all. I had just put it a little bit more on the back burner and focused more on what they, their needs and what they were wanting from me, which ended up being a huge asset for me because it really helped me create a lot more contacts in the industry, helped me create a lot more relevance, and really get my feet underneath of me in a big way. So it was an awesome year, and it really helped me in my business. That was another thing, other than Vortex always being there and always helping me and their team. Um, this that deal coming together and producing that show for them really helped me get through the first, basically year and a half at that point of business and solidify myself as a business and as a company. And then when I left from them, it was pretty easy for me to start lining up work and start, um, building a client list, a bigger client list, and keep growing. Uh, so that was a pretty cool experience. But
Dude,
yeah, I don't know. That's kind of how I guess how I got started and how Just Instinct started, and I guess that name too, like, is kind of that name. You may have figured it out, but it kind of comes from, like, I self-taught myself how to use, cameras. Like, I wasn't
dude,
didn't go to school for it. I didn't have any professional training, so that was kind of where the name for it came. Is Just Instinct, because that was kind of what it was.
dude, I love it. That's nuts. That's man, what a crazy story. When was this? What year was this that you were filming the show?
Would have been 2017, I think.
2017.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Dude,
so I was in the first job I took in the industry for the branding and marketing company. I worked there for 3 years. Uh, I started 2 weeks after graduating college, and then after I quit there, I've been running Just Instinct Creative now for this is in my 10th year.
dude, that's awesome. Good for you, man. That's you know, uh wow. Yeah. So it's funny because when you kind of when we talked before, you sent me some information before in an email, and I was reading it through. And I told my wife, I'm like, what's funny is Morgan and I have a very similar backstory to when it comes to how we kind of got started. Because same thing for me. I graduated. I got a fine arts degree in visual communication design, graphic
Mhm.
design. I started earlier with the cameras. I was shooting for the university I was going to, using their gear
Mhm.
while I was still in school. But from there, went to a couple of different jobs in marketing, ended up at a more or less toxic marketing agency with the culture, started shooting TV. I was shooting food and fishing mostly,
Mm.
not hunting, for a local, not cable, but just like a local Fox 28 channel
Yep.
here. Learned a lot, grew a lot, because I think that's the thing. If you ever have a chance to work in TV production, right? I always recommend people take that because it's a different way of storytelling, but it also like forces you to learn and think on your feet very quickly, especially if you're doing a hunting show because you're like, you're in the environment and you're packing gear and you're trying to figure out how do I tell this story well? How's it going to translate to TV? Was it when you were making that show, was it already airing? So you were
Yeah.
having like or were you okay.
It had a few seasons that had already aired. I think when I came in it was season 3, I think.
Cool.
And what I came to find out later, and part of the reason why I moved on when I did, is they had already replaced their production team twice before I got there. So
Okay.
that was kind of the writing on the wall. Is like, okay, there's some things here that maybe don't make a ton of sense long term.
Gotcha.
But it was still super fun. And so we had the Sportsman Channel series, and then we also had a sub series on Carbon TV at the same time.
Gotcha.
So we produced both of those.
And so were you when you were shooting them, you would do a hunt and you would cut and edit those episodes and they'd launch right after and then you do the next one,
No,
or did you shot the
no,
whole season first and then aired it? Okay.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yep, yep,
That's awesome.
yeah. It was a fun time, man. There was all kinds of crazy things that happened during that year. It was pretty neat. it all kind of blurs together as the years fly by.
No kidding. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's crazy. So from there, so you're working full time, Just Instinct. You wrapped up shooting this TV show. What was it like in that transition period of firing up? You know, you were working for Just Instinct. You left your job. You
hmm
got this show. You're doing that for a year, and then going back into firing Just Instinct up again to full speed. What was that kind of
I
change?
remember the day I told my family that I quit producing a TV show, because they knew how incredible of an opportunity that was, and they've always supported me, but they looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, "You, you sure that's a good idea?" And I'm like, "It'll be fine. I don't feel bad about it. It will be fine." Um, and literally the next day, I had half a dozen jobs lined up.
Dude, yeah.
Like it was like I started making phone calls to contacts that I had made in the industry over that year, and it was like, yeah, man, dude, we got work. Like, come do it. Like, absolutely. Like, I felt really good about it. It wasn't a huge concern for me. Not the way it was leaving my first job. The first job, I was like, I don't know how this is gonna work. The second, leaving the TV show, it wasn't a concern for me. It really started to take off. Vortex started to use me more and more for bigger and bigger projects, product launches. They flew out here. We did a couple of large, like multi-day shoots with their team. I arranged for models, locations, equipment, all that stuff, and then we'd shoot product launch stuff, catalog stuff, web stuff, social stuff. Over 3-4 days. As that as that got more and more, it just opened doors. Like pretty soon, Savage was like, "Well, shoot, if he's shooting stuff for Vortex, like he can shoot stuff for us. We'd love to have him shoot stuff for us." And then, that opened another door, and that opened another door. And I've been really, really blessed in my career to work with so many good people. Like I said, the first 3 to 4 years were a little rough, just trying to figure it out. There were some bad actors and some different stuff going on that just was a little bit of a learning curve. But out of that, I learned a ton. I learned what not to do. I learned what to avoid. I learned red flags to look for when working with people, working with companies, and it really it sucked, but it did set me up for success. It set
Yeah.
me up to understand what it takes and understand how to treat people and how to work with people. And that's the big thing, man. Like my business is so relationship driven.
Oh yeah,
It's
100%.
entirely relationship driven. You know, my work is I guess good, but there's a lot of dudes who do a ton of really good work in this industry,
Yeah.
um, that do better work than I do, in my opinion. What I think I bring to the table is relationship and following through with what I say I'm going to do. If the companies I work with, the people that I work with know that if I say I'm going to get this done, this is what it's going to cost, and this is what it's going to look like when it gets done, they don't have any more questions. They're like, cool, do it. Like that's all we need to know. Like, because my word and my reputation means more than anything to me. Like I want people to know that if I say it, it's happening.
Yeah.
And that seems to be rare to find these days. It seems to be somewhat rare. I think a lot of companies, a lot of people get burnt by people who say, "Oh, I can do that, I can do all this stuff," and then not follow through. And
Yeah, I think that happens a lot, and that's something that has always baffled me a little bit. Right before I went back to school, I was working in retail, and customer service was kind of my thing, right? And going into production work, realizing that the amount of brands I've spoken to that have either been burned, like how often do you hear this? The fact that you showed up on time, right, or that you showed up at all, and I'm like,
yep,
you mean people are telling you that they're going to show up and they just blow you off? They just don't show, and they're like, yeah, it happens all the time, and I'm like, what the heck?
yep. Or there's a deadline,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, "Hey, yeah, like we need this project done. Can you have it done by June 7th? And they're calling you on June 8th going, where's it at? Like, I can't tell you how many companies have told me that they've had that kind of nightmare with other people, other people. And it's like, my motto is like, friggin' under promise, over deliver, man. Like, if I say it's going to be done on the 7th, I'm probably going to have it done on the 5th. Like,
Nice.
you're going to have it before that, because like that's the way that I operate. But I mean, I think that's really important. I think that's what solidifies you with clients long term. I think that's all the clients that I work with now, for the most part, are clients I've worked with for years, like
That's
lots,
awesome.
like long term. Vortex I've been working with now for over 10 years. Savage I've been working with for uh, over 5, I think. Um, Bass Pro Shop and Cabela's I've been working for now. We're going into our 4th full year I've been working with them.
Nice.
Um, like, my clients know, my customers know that like I'm going to take care of them and they're going to be a priority.
Yeah.
And I think that's really incredible. And honestly, like one of the biggest accomplishments, or like things I'm really proud of in my career, um, is shooting for Bass Pro and Cabela's. Like, that was always a dream of mine. Uh, I mean, they're the biggest in this space, really, especially for retail. They're by far the biggest, and um, I just always want to shoot for them. And really happened because of Vortex. A lot of my images were in their stores and stuff already, because Vortex would send them out to use for marketing purposes. But I ended up meeting a really good dude, one of the best people in the industry, Adam Bender, through social media, and we we started chatting. I can't remember how it exactly happened, but um, I he would post about all these different trips he was doing all over the world. Just incredible trips, once in a lifetime trips. And I came to realize that he was running the signature events program, and what those are is basically it's a customer service to Bass Pro and Cabela's card members. So, for being a card member, you have access to all these different trips around the world that only you have access to. They're the best trips and the best locations with the best guides during the best time of year. They're hunting trips, they're fishing trips, they're experiences with industry-leading companies that you would never get any other way. Um, and he built that program, and he had a team of photographers that he would send out to capture images on these trips, not only for Bass Pro to use and Cabela's to use as marketing, but also to give to the guests. Uh, so we started talking, and I ended up asking him, hey, like, I would love to shoot for you if there's ever an opportunity. Like, no pressure. I get it. Like, would love to shoot with you though, or shoot for you though. And he goes, yeah, I'll keep that in mind for sure. Like, sometimes we need another photographer. And we talked back and forth for like a year. Uh, and I saw that he was going to be at SHOT Show uh, the beginning of the next year, and said, hey, I'd love to meet with you briefly if you got time. Just give you one of my catalogs, talk to you, shake your hand, whatever. He said, yeah, here's my phone number. Shoot me a text. I'll let you know when I have time. I've got a ton of meetings, but I'll let you know when I'm in between. So I'll go to SHOT Show. It was Thursday. It was the last day I was going to be there. I always fly out Friday. And just got back to my hotel room. I was dead tired. You walk that show, it's like freaking 10 miles a day on concrete. It's just mentally and physically exhausting.
Yep.
Get back to my hotel room, just threw my backpack off, and my phone starts ringing. He says, hey, I got 10 minutes. I can meet you in Hornaday. I'm like, I was at the link, and I'm like a mile back down the strip, into the Venetian, into the Sands Expo, and I'm like, okay, I'll be there. like don't say anymore. So
Yep.
throw my pack on, full sprint. I mean, full sprint as fast as I could go, down through the hotel, back into the show, meet him at the Venetian, or at the Hornaday booth, and I'm just like, just gasping for air, trying not to show it.
Sweat just
Just
a
like,
little bit.
hey man, talk to him for 10 minutes, like whatever, and that was it. And we would kind of keep in touch. after that, and just we had a number of mutual interests. We're history nerds and stuff like that. And we
Mm.
talk about that back and forth on Instagram for like a few years. Never really heard anything. I was still doing stuff in the industry, and that was great. Like no worries. Um, and then like one day I was like, hey, like we were talking about something. I was like, hey, I just want to mention it again because it's been a couple of years. Like I'd still really love to shoot for you guys if there's ever an opportunity.
Mhm.
And he goes, yeah, let's make it happen. I'm like, like,
Hey, man.
like really? He goes, yeah. So like, I don't hear anything else for like 2 weeks, and I get a text message, and it's like, you ready to go? I'm like, yeah, I am. You
Let's
know,
go.
let's go. Like when and where. So yeah, ended up sending me to Winchester the next week, and covered that event for them. Awesome. Still one of my favorite experiences they do.
Cool.
Really cool event. Toured their factory. Went out to Nilo Farms, which is really historic. If you know about the history there and King Buck and all that type of
Mhm.
thing, that background. Uh, and from there it was like, yeah, we're using you. Like you know,
Dude.
they send me all over the world. I the next 2 years I would do about like 60-ish days, 60-ish days a year for them in the field. So
Wow.
quite a few. Sorry, I'm just getting over a cold.
No, dude, you're good.
Oh man.
Better to
Um,
get it over with now before SHOT Show. I don't know if
oh,
you
I
heard.
know, dude. That's just getting over it. I've been sneezing my head off. So, but anyway, so like, uh, yeah, I would do about 60 days a year for them, just for them, for about 2 years. Last year, cut it back a little bit, which is great. I just couldn't with everything else I was juggling. I was like, hey, like I'm good with taking less days. Like that's fine. They also cut back a few of the events, so it just made it
Mhm.
less days total. But it's an awesome team, like really good people. They have a total of 7 photographers on their team, and we cover about 95 events a year for them all over the
Wow.
world.
That's a lot.
Um, yeah, it is a lot. Like it's pretty pretty incredible. But I mean, it's the best trips that you can do. They're once in a lifetime trips. I mean,
Dude,
just
that's awesome.
unreal. Some of my favorite images I've captured are on those trips. Like just it's real, it's raw, it's not staged, it's not set up, it's honestly a little bit different than what I shoot on a day-to-day basis because that stuff's more staged. Like you kind of have to for a lot of the marketing advertising stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, but really a cool experience. I mean, just
Dude.
unbelievable. Been so many places for them that are just you know hard
You
to
know,
believe.
Morgan, I think that's an important thing for people to know though that are wanting to get into this industry is sometimes again, you touched on a couple of things. One, you're a relationship guy, right?
Yep.
That's important, right? But two, it's
Yep.
also the long game, right? Like
Yeah.
you could have blown him off and not been like, hey, well, I didn't get the work right away, and then pieced out and gone and done something else,
Yep.
right? But you didn't do that. You're like, hey, I know this guy, and you stayed in contact, and you found common ground, and and then you brought it back up later, and all of a sudden, boom, you're going 60 days
Yep.
plus, like traveling all over the place with Cabela, shooting with those dudes. I mean, that's important, right? I think that a lot
Yeah.
of people need to know that, especially the up and comers. It's like, hey, it's if you how badly do you want it, and if you want it really bad, you'll be willing to invest the time
Yep.
relationally with these brands.
And not
Um,
being rude, and not being rude to people, and not like,
yeah,
and being genuine. It's not just like, oh, I'm just gonna keep knocking on your door because you have something that I want. It's I'm gonna knock on your door because I'm genuinely interested in you and your product or whatever you're doing. And being that way. I mean, Adam's one of my best friends now. Like we talk all the time. We work together regularly. Like awesome dude.
awesome.
Incredibly talented, incredibly good at what he does, and knows everybody. Like just awesome individual.
Yeah.
And like being genuine is what matters. Like now, one of the downsides of social media is it allows people to be really fake.
Hmm.
You can hide a lot of stuff, right? And I think it's really refreshing when you meet genuine people. And I'm really blessed to work with so many genuine, real people
Hmm.
uh, in this space that it's yeah, I'm just really blessed to be able to say that I get to work with awesome people who I'm genuinely friends with. Like it's not work if you get to work with your friends, right?
Right. Well, and to know that you have people to call on, right? That's like, hey, that would have your back in a heartbeat. Where it's like, look, we're
Yep.
not. not really in competition. We're trying to support each other. We're a community of creators, and it's like, look,
Yep.
my whole goal with growing guns and cameras and doing what I do is like I just want to be on people's list of names. And
Yep.
most of these lists aren't very long. It's like, look, if you got a 5 or 10 person list of people that you can call on that are going to have your back and
Yep.
do good work for you when you need it, that's the list I want to be on. I don't want to be the number one guy. I just want to be on the list, right?
Yep.
Because if and when that opportunity arises and you're third guy on the list and you get that call and you're like, let's go, you never know. Like next thing you know, you're 4 years in and you've traveled all over the world and you got some of the best content of your life, right? And that's the importance of being an authentic and go-getting type of person, right? That's willing to take on the hard stuff. Do you shoot? Are you mostly photo? Like, what's your ratio of photo to video?
It's getting more and more video.
Yeah.
I like photo more just because I mean it's easier, honestly,
Yep.
than video. Video takes a lot more work, a lot more planning, a lot more time. But I do. I'd say as of right now, it's probably 60% photo, 40% video. But I still do a substantial or significant amount of marketing and branding work as well.
Yeah.
I still do a pretty significant amount of that. I package design, ad design, stuff like that.
Cool.
I'm doing less of it. I'm trying to taper that stuff off and do less of it just because I like doing the photo video stuff better.
Hmm.
And I just do. So, I, but I'm not going to get rid of it completely. I still enjoy some of that stuff. I still enjoy some of that process. So, but it gives me, I feel like that background, graphic design and marketing background, especially the design side, gives me a different eye than what a lot of photographers have
Yep.
because you can make a great image. There's a lot of great images out there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that image is going to work well in ads. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work well, in various different media formats that are needed now for advertising, like it
Hmm.
or packaging or whatever that is.
Hmm.
And so shooting with ads in mind, with packaging in mind, with those types of things, I think just gives my stuff a different look and a little bit different feel than what maybe some of your other photographers in the industry do.
Yeah, 100%. I was gonna ask if you had noticed that as a benefit because I have the same benefit, right? I rely on my graphic design and marketing background a lot when it comes to shooting photos, right? Being able to look in the viewfinder and kind of see how the ad's going to lay out before you even click the shutter
Yep.
is a big value add, especially for people in our industry because I think I was doing a job. I was doing motion graphic and editing for a marketing agency locally in Spokane for a ski hill in North Idaho. And it also helps being able to integrate into existing marketing teams. So what helped me
Hmm.
is I was able to go to the creative director and they would provide, 4 or 5 pages of InDesign documents with all the graphics laid out and the frames. And they'd say, this is what we want this scene to look like. And I was able to take that and rebuild it, pick images that would work. And a lot of times you're falling back on that basic design from graphic design school about composition, layout, right, typography, all that stuff is relevant, right? And so for a photographer or a videographer to kind of have that in their back pocket is going to be huge, huge advantage, I think. So
Yep, I agree. I definitely think it gives you an advantage in a lot of different ways, and it allows you to speak better with the advertising and marketing teams when they're saying, "Hey, we need this specific shot or this specific thing." Well, okay, I know I need to
yeah,
leave headroom. I know I need to leave space on the left or right side depending on what the layout is. It just
hmm,
helps
yeah,
with
100%.
communication.
So you had said earlier that you started out shooting Canon 5D Mark IIs, Mark IIIs. What are you rolling with today? What is your go-to?
Well, actually, so what I was rolling with up until a couple weeks ago or a week ago was R5 Mark One and 5D Mark IV, all EF glass, a C70 for video. That's what I have been running now for um, a few years, 3, 4 years, something like that. I think the R5, whatever the R5 came out, that's when I purchased that. So however long that's
Hmm.
been. And then the Mark IV I've been running for quite some time. But got to the end of this year and I was like, it's time to upgrade. I want to make the jump to RF glass. Get rid of, not get rid of the EF glass, but just make that jump to RF because Canon's kind of pushing us that direction anyway, moving forward. So I picked up two R5 Mark IIs and one C80
Nice.
camera, and then a whole suite of lenses
I've
for
heard the
that stuff.
C80 is supposed to be pretty sweet.
Yeah, I think it will be. I've loved the C70. I mean, it's been a great camera. That is
Yeah.
what I wish I had when I started in the industry for a video camera. Like it has been so good at what it does with the EF adapter, making it almost like a full frame camera essentially. It's been so good. The autofocus has been pretty good. It color corrects really nice. It looks really good. It's yeah, it's I have very few complaints about the C70, and I think the C80 is going to be an improvement on it. And I'll end up keeping that C70 and using it as a B camera when I
No,
need
yeah,
it.
definitely. I've shot a few things on the C70, and the only complaint I have about it is that it's just the. I mean, it's Canon, right? So it kind of feels like it's got that Canon feel, but that the flip out screen thing,
Mm-hmm.
the one I
Yep.
was shooting on was off floppy. It was like a dog ear every time. It just couldn't. I don't know.
Yep. They had
That
problems
cool.
with those. I know they changed that in some of the later C70s because a lot of people had problems with it. Knock on wood, I have not had problems with it yet. That being
Cool.
said, that is my one big complaint with it is the screen isn't bright enough. It's like
Yeah.
I don't know why you can't have the same brightness screen that you have in your R5. Like that's a
Dude,
great
you
screen.
know why? You know why? Because it can't be perfect. You got to have
Yeah.
something, right?
Yep.
Otherwise, it'd be the perfect camera. So that there you go.
Got it.
Yeah,
G'day, mate. That's not a knife. This is a knife. Oh, hey, what's up, guys? We're halfway through this week's episode, and if you haven't watched Crocodile Dundee lately, I highly recommend you do so because it is a great film. This episode has been brought to you by 1156 Productions and by Tokens of Valor. Tokens of Valor is my side hustle where I take ballistic components like brass and copper and I match them up with sterling silver to create one-of-a-kind, hand-forged, wearable works of art for both men and women. If you are interested in getting a piece of custom jewelry made for yourself, find me on Instagram at Tokens of Valor, send me a DM and we'll get something started for you. Also, if you guys are a fan of the show, and or you like guns and cameras, and or you work in the guns and cameras industry, go to 1156productions.com. Navigate to the brand store and pick up some guns and camera swag. I got slaps, I got patches, I got t-shirts about different colors and sizes. So if you guys go buy something, all that money is just going to go back into growing this channel and supporting the creatives in our industry. If you buy something, thank you. I appreciate you. You guys are the best. Also, like, share, subscribe across all the platforms. Leave a review on the podcast. That'd really help me out. I'd appreciate it. All right, you guys. I really hope you're enjoying this episode with Mr. Morgan Gregory. Morgan is crazy talented at taking pictures, shooting video, and going hand-to-hand combat with spiders the size of his hand. If we haven't gotten to that story, just wait. It's great. If you've heard it already, you know it's good. If you haven't heard it, it's worth waiting for in the second half of the episode. But now I'm blabbering and I have an accent to work on. So, let's get back into the episode, shall we?
that was the place. So, what are you excited? What are you looking forward to in this next year, 2025? Sounds like you've upgraded. You got some new gear. What's getting you stoked about what's coming up next?
I got a bunch of product launches that are going to be fun. Different stuff. The thing I'm really looking forward to right now is I'm going to Namibia for 15 days for Bass Pro and Cabela's.
Namibia or
So that'll be
what is it
fun.
again? Did I say that wrong?
Namibia. I think that's
Namibia.
how you pronounce it. Namibia. Yeah,
Namibia,
it's right above South Africa. So,
dude.
yeah, that'll be fun. We're doing a 15-day stint there. So Africa's been number one on my list for quite some time, and I've not made it there yet. So, yeah, looking forward to that.
Dude,
I think it's gonna be
not gonna lie, I love to travel. Africa is not on my list. It kind of freaks me out, that whole continent. I think there are some
ah,
amazing things there, but I'm just like,
yeah.
Africa is just, I don't know what it is.
I
Freaks me
like
out.
I like the adventure of it. It's I don't like to do a lot of those trips just because they're physically and mentally, exhausting. But I like to do one or two a year. One or two a year is great. Like if I can
Hmm.
do, a big trip like that once or twice a year, that's all I really need to just keep me like excited about something different.
Yeah.
The craziest one I've done to date so far was amazing. Never doing it again, but it was amazing. It was so oscillated turkey in Mexico. which if
Okay.
you're familiar with ocellated turkey, they're the rainbow turkey.
Yep.
Run around in the jungles down there. So Bass Pro sent me on that. Adam sent me on that. Um, Flew down there, flew into Merida. It was a cluster getting there, just one thing after another. Sometimes travel goes that way. Got to Campeche where we stayed a night. We ended up going like fishing the day before we went to the jungle, which it was super cool, but it ended up like we figured out after we got back from the fishing trip that we were not supposed to be fishing. Like we're in a fishing village and we're the only fishing boat out. All the red flags were out on the bay because they had a storm coming in. And so like
Gotcha.
they were just like, oh, we'll take the gringos. They won't know any difference. We'll just take them out fishing, And like we didn't catch anything. We didn't see a bite. It was nothing, but it was fun. Like they took us through all the mangroves and stuff.
Nice.
But then what you do is they load you up onto into a little van. We had like 8 of us. Drove us 3 hours south to a village, and I mean a village. Is the last village on the edge of the jungle in southern Mexico. In Campeche, the town that we were just in, just for reference, the name apparently stands for the land of ticks and snakes. So that kind of sets you up for what happens next.
I hate
You know,
ticks, man. I hate them. That's the worst.
yeah, oh, dude, that was the least of our concerns. So they drop us off in this village, like literally on a corner. This van just pulls up, drops us off, all of our gear, pulls away. We're like standing there in the heat, like looking around. We're like, okay, well, what now? Pretty soon, like 15 minutes later, here come like half a dozen old Jeeps that are just held together with duct tape and bubble gum. Just, scary. And we pile into these Jeeps, all of our gear, and we start driving in the jungle. And 2 hours on the bumpiest road you've ever been on in your life. I mean, just getting the snot beat out of you. Pull into this camp, and it's exactly what you think of when you think jungle camp. I mean, it is incredible. Palm frond thatched buildings. They've got African safari style like tents set up all over the place for you. They've got a creek, freshwater creek running through the middle of camp. They've got a little kitchen set up in a little shack that they built with 2-burner stove. Incredible. Like the monkeys they got like howler monkeys screaming at you and spider monkeys going over the place and toucans flying around. I mean, it is unreal. Everywhere you look, it's something you've never seen before. And it's rad. But it's 100% humidity the whole time you're there. It might get down to 80 degrees at night, and it's like 105 during the day.
Oof.
So you forget what it's like not to sweat.
It's thick, man.
It's just thick. And that night, I go into my tent. These tents are not sealed. They are just a canvas tent sat on a wood platform.
Oof.
So I go in there. I'm setting out my gear, getting cameras ready for the morning because it's like we get up at like 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And setting out my stuff. And I notice there's something round laying on the bed. I'm like, what is that? Did I lay a lens cap there or something? Can't see real good. It's not lit real well. I got my flashlight, shine it over. Oh no, that's a spider the size of my hand.
Ooh.
I mean, just laying there on my bed, and I can deal with a lot of stuff. I hate spiders. I hate them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I lose it. Like the whole camp can hear me just like losing it. Just losing it. And I knock it on the floor, crush it. It squeals. It's so big, just like freaking crazy.
Dude.
Crush it, and then I start ripping the tent apart. And each tent, we shared a tent with another guy. I shared with one of the guests, Sean, who was an older gentleman, and he was hilarious. He had me rolling the whole trip. And he's just standing there laughing as I'm ripping apart this tent, making sure, like, what else is in here that maybe I should be aware of. Sure enough, I find another spider. It's even bigger than the first one. I kill it. Like, oh my gosh, my skin's just crawling. I walk outside to go to the bathroom, and there's, 3 inches, 4 inches of dead leaves everywhere. Shine my flashlight into the jungle, and there's just hundreds of yellow eyes everywhere you look. And those are all spiders and scorpions. Under every leaf, every stick, just everywhere. And at that point, I'm just like, my skin's crawling. I'm like, how on earth am I going to sleep? Well, the question is, you're not going to sleep. I freaking laid in that cot and just like prayed for sunlight. I mean, it was the longest night of my life. And I think it was only like 4 hours. But you get up the next morning and you go out, and it's incredible, man. Everywhere you look, we were the farthest jungle camp in Mexico. Nobody was
Hmm.
in farther than we were. It's beautiful. There's all the flora and fauna is stuff you've never seen before in real life. They've got curacao and guan and brocket buck and these turkeys, ocellated turkeys, and they have jaguars. We didn't see any, but the group
Hmm.
before us did. All kinds of cool stuff, and just incredible. Then you come back to camp, and they'd feed you. I mean, fed us like kings.
Sweet.
Absolutely, the food would not have been out of place at a 5-star resort on the beaches of Cabo. I mean, you would
That's
never guess
awesome.
it was coming out of a two-burner stove out of a shack.
Dude, I mean, you gotta, because my question is Mike, you're getting paid to be there, right?
Yeah.
The guests though are paying to go through this, right? So I'm
Yep.
curious, like, what the guests are thinking, right? Like, hey, I just forked over, a substantial amount of money. I know about these trips. I've seen how much they cost. They're not cheap, right?
Yep.
Riding through, 2 hours on a crazy bumpy road to get to a jungle camp packed full of
Yep.
spiders. I mean, how many? I mean, what are they thinking usually about some of these things? Are they soaking
People,
it up
people,
or?
Bass Pro, their team's really good at like warning people and like, hey, like this is what you're in for. This is what's gonna happen. So if you're not good with that, like this isn't your trip. And they're really good at doing that and vetting people and just like letting them know like what they're in for. And the whole group that we had was awesome. We had a great group of people. And the cool thing about those types of trips too is, you don't have cell service. You don't have any way to contact the outside world, which is a double-edged sword because something goes wrong, you are kind of
Yeah,
screwed.
you
But
got to figure it out. Yeah.
um, the cool thing about it is by the time that you leave that camp, you're family.
Yeah.
Like you're all sitting there playing cards during the day for hours on end because there's nothing to do during the middle of the day. So you're eating, you're sitting there playing cards, drinking, whatever. You're just having fun, getting to know everybody. Um, and it's just a really really cool experience. Like I said, like I love that trip. It was an incredible trip. I just don't ever need to do it again. And like the funny thing about it is somehow I just must have drawn the lucky lotto ticket that week because like no one else had that problem. No one else found anything in their
They
tent. I
just
was
knew
the only
that they just had a feeling that spider
Yeah,
sense that you didn't like
yeah.
spiders, and they
They're
just
like,
like,
oh,
let's
go and do
mess
this.
with this
Well,
guy.
so spider wasn't even the worst thing I found in my bed that week. The third night I went in there and I'm paranoid now, so I'm checking everything before I go
Hmm.
to bed and I pull back the sheet and there was a 6-inch scorpion in it.
Oh, ouch. No thanks.
Yeah, so that was exciting. That was a fun deal
Dude,
too.
that's
And
awesome.
Sean, the funny thing about that was like Sean was like all about it. He's like, "Can I kill it?" I'm like, "I ain't gonna stop you. Freaking go nuts." So he had this like Leatherman, and he's just like, "I'm gonna stab it." So he stabs this sucker, and it just like shakes it off. It didn't even care. It starts doing circles around my cot. I'm just again freaking out. I'm like,
Now you
"This
got
is
an angry
basically a spider.
scorpion.
It has to die. Like this thing has to die, or I'm never sleeping in here again." So like we throw it on it finally knock it off the bed onto the floor, and thank heaven Sean had Crocs on. I just had open-toed sandals, and he's like stomping this thing into the floor, and it's like trying to sting him through the sandals. it was it was an experience. It was fun, man. It was super cool. Yeah, I just that trip I'm good. I don't ever need to do that one again.
Holy smokes, dude. Have you, one question I did have for you. Have you ever had any issues traveling internationally with a lot of camera gear? Have you ever been harassed by like customs or anything like that?
Knock on wood, no, thankfully. But
Yeah,
now that
cool.
you've asked that, for other problem, no.
No, I
I
don't want.
haven't as of yet, thankfully. So,
Yeah, I've heard
um,
a few guys that I've talked to that have done a lot of traveling, and some of them have some horror stories with customs about camera gear, and I was just curious.
I've had a friend that's had problems with other like work equipment. It wasn't camera gear;
Hmm.
it was some other high end work equipment that he had that he was flying
Hmm.
through Mexico City, and he had a really bad time. Had to like basically pay them off
Yeah.
to like let him leave with it. But thankfully, I did not have that
How
experience.
much gear? I mean, how much gear do you roll with usually on a trip like that? Are you traveling pretty light, or do you packing all
No,
kinds
I've
of stuff?
traveled pretty. I mean, as heavy as I can. Like on a trip like that, um, like numbers wise, as far as dollars wise, is probably around $30,000 worth of stuff.
Okay.
So like usually a couple bodies, uh, 3 or 4 lenses, some flashes just in case, tripod, uh, just some other ancillary
Yeah.
gear.
Do they have generators for you out there? What do you do for
They
power?
did on that trip. Yeah, they did
Yeah.
on that trip.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. Crazy. Well, oh, bro, we could talk probably for hours. But real quick, I just want to jump into some of your work, and then we'll just kind of see where we go from there. If you're okay hanging out for a little bit, we may go a little bit long on
Yeah,
this
I'm good.
episode.
I'm in no rush.
But let's jump in some of your work real quick. I got your Instagram pulled up here. This is the just.instinct Instagram. This is not your personal one. So let's share the screen here and take a look. I got it queued up right now at the very bottom of your Just Instinct Instagram. So can you see this here? We got a red door.
Holy smokes.
So let's talk about just these first couple images here. When and where and how and why the works.
That was taken with like I think it was like a TLR3 like Canon like that I bought. That was a camera I think I bought while I was in college for one project I was going to need it for, and used it for like one project, and then I literally didn't even know how to use it very well, and I took that picture like driving down the highway out in Eastern Oregon. There's a place, an old stage stop, out kind of like by Burns area, on the way to Burns basically, and I was like, oh,
Nice.
that's cool. Like it's man, that's old. I've totally forgotten
Yeah,
about that photo.
November 30th, 2013. This is the very first image on your Instagram here, which
And
is
so my business page was at first my personal page.
I
And so
got
like
you.
some of this early stuff is like just like kind of I mean it was work related, but just a lot of like different personal stuff. A lot of those are just cell phone pictures.
Yeah,
Like yeah, just cell phone shots. That was while I was still working at the branding company.
nice.
Yeah. Um,
Oh, we're going the wrong way here. Hold on. How often do you go? Do you go to the bottom of your Instagram feed? And
Not very often, man. I don't remember the last time. That I think that was just a cell phone shot. That was definitely a cell phone shot. That was out on a photo shoot. We were shooting some stuff for. That was while I was still working at the branding company. We were shooting some stuff for Realtree
nice,
and Montana Rifle Company.
nice man.
Yeah, that was. I mean, those are all like cell phone photos. None of
Dude,
those are.
I love going back and looking through some people's old work because that's one of the positives I say about social media is that you have basically
Mhm.
a running portfolio and that shows your growth really over time.
Yep. That was on the way. So that was on the way to Sweden. That was in Sweden.
This right here.
Yeah, to visit. That was I was still working that first job. That was to visit Norm Ammunition. We went to go have meetings over there and visit their
Nice,
factory. That was
sweet,
on a hunt there. I got a hunt roe deer one morning there.
crazy. Look at this stuff, man. I love this. What are you thinking about when you're looking at these? How long ago does this feel like for you?
Dude,
Like
it's like another life. Yeah, it's like another life. It's been so long. Yeah, I mean they're pretty much all cell phone photos to start. I mean none of it was professional.
2014, man.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward a little bit here. If you see something that kind of sparks your memory, let's just like call it out
Yeah,
and
so
just
like
go.
this is all still while I was still at the branding company. All this stuff that was still there. This is kind of right in here is where I started to really get interested in photography. This is where I was actually using like a legit camera and like starting to get serious about it. This was all on the 5D Mark twos,
So
pretty much.
so what hooked you, right? So you didn't start with cameras until post grad, and
Hmm.
you had access to a camera, and you start shooting. Then you say you kind of clicked with it. What was it that sucked you in?
Instagram, man. Like Instagram was really like the catalyst. Is like I got on there and started seeing all these cool images from different creators, and that's what really got me like excited about it and interested. Like, man, I want to do that. Like, how, can I do that? How can I do that? You know, and like this is all. So this stuff. This was after. This was once I started Just Instinct, right in here. Like all this
Gotcha.
stuff.
Okay.
Um, this is when I started shooting some stuff for Vortex. Um, started to grow my portfolio, do some stuff for some smaller local brands, smaller brands, apparel brands and stuff. Um, did some stuff with Radian Weapons here. That was some early stuff, uh, and that relationship grew, and I ended up doing quite a bit of work for them for a while. Um, that that photo right there, over to the right, Yep, that one. That's one of my all-time favorite photos I've ever shot.
Sweet.
That was in New Mexico. I don't know why. I just thought it was cool. That was in
No, it
New
is
Mexico.
cool. So, how'd you get this shot? Talk us through it. What were you?
That was in New Mexico, shooting images of Colorado buck in the field. Uh,
Cool.
f- he had gotten sponsored by Norm Ammunition, and he needed a bunch of like marketing photos for them. So
Cool.
I flew out to New Mexico and went to his camp 2 different times, and
Sweet.
just followed him around as he was guiding hunts and stuff.
That's awesome. So,
And
question,
that
because people are going to be
yes,
curious: is this a single long exposure with some light on the barn, or is this a multiple exposure composite?
guess what I lit that with?
Hmm.
Guess what I lit that with?
Flashlight.
If you had to guess. A cell phone.
Cell phone. Okay. Cell phone flashlight.
It's a 30-second exposure lit with a cell phone.
Cool. Love it.
Yeah.
That's a great shot. Milky Way is awesome. Do you have a print? Have you printed this out? Favorite
I have
photo?
a print on my wall actually in my office.
That's what's up. Good job. You know how many people don't print their stuff?
Dude,
Many.
and I'm guilty of it too. I don't print that much. I have a handful of images that I have printed. I should print a lot more. I love print and I just don't take the time. Yeah, this is all super early on. Like I was just figuring out what
All
on
right.
earth I was doing.
Look at this
Right
thing,
in
man.
here. Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun toy. I honestly got rid of that a year or two ago just because I didn't use it that much. It was awesome when you needed it, but you couldn't take it
Yeah.
anywhere because it was so big. Right in here, so I started shooting for the TV show.
Cool.
These were all their trips, different hunts and stuff that they were doing.
Nice.
Yeah, some pretty cool stuff. That was pretty rad. This is stuff I was like living down in Texas.
You know, the thing that's kind of interesting to me, going back to drone a little bit, is that I worked at a hobby shop for 8 years and I was in the RC section. And
Hmm.
I was building drones before you could buy drones. I was,
Yep.
hand coding the Arduinos, using RC airplane parts, balsa wood. And I remember there's this magical time of drones. Like you could still blow people away with drone footage. And I feel like now we're like post drone. Like now drones are weaponized, right? As we know from
Yep.
Ukraine.
Yep.
But the use of them for footage is like the magic is kind of gone now. So it's kind of become just like this ancillary thing where like, hey, we could use a drone, and they're like, I don't know, drone. Everybody does drone.
Yep.
And I'm curious to see what the next evolution of the use of drone footage is going to be.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, like I got rid of that Inspire 2 just because I didn't use it that much. Like it
Right.
was awesome when you needed it, but I didn't need it that much, and I replaced it with one of the Airs, one of the little Airs,
Oh,
because
dude,
it's just like,
I have an Air 2, and that thing is awesome. It's
yeah,
small, it's
it's great.
compact, shoots great image, and
Yeah.
again, for how much I use it, which is not all that often, it does great. We're gonna fast forward here
Yep.
real quick. Although I am looking at maybe one of these newer ones, like the Air 3 or whatever the one that
Mhm.
is just came out. I might upgrade
Mhm.
soon, but they're expensive. So,
Yeah, yeah, they get expensive
all
fast.
right, so we fast forwarded a little bit here. Are you still shooting TV, or is this more recent here?
Nope, I'm done. Like this is where things started to get real serious right in here.
Look at that
Like
floating rifle.
shoot,
Nice.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, right in here, things started to get real serious. Like it was lots of stuff for Savage, lots of stuff for Vortex, um,
Nice.
lots of stuff for a handful of other brands. Like this is where it really started to like take off, and I really started to get a name in the industry.
Yeah, I
And
was gonna say, so we're right at 2019, and I feel like 2019 is when the gun content started going crazy, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because at this time I started shooting for Axis Manufacturing, and I was doing in studio photo with guns. I was doing lifestyle stuff with guns, and then I started seeing everybody I was following was just like, you were one of those guys, right? Just like
yep,
it started becoming like a thing to do high production value imagery for gun companies, manufacturers. And then the Instagram, I feel like, was still more or less open source is probably the wrong word, but it wasn't as censored.
it wasn't censoring it as hard
Yeah,
as it is
it
now.
wasn't
Yeah,
being throttled as much.
yep. Which is why, like honestly, I don't post that much on my business account anymore, just because I've number one, I'm too busy. Number two, I'm usually shooting a year ahead with products that haven't launched yet, so I
Yeah,
can't.
so sensitivity. Yeah,
um, Sensitivity. But number three, like I went from where I was getting several hundred likes per post at least to like I can lucky if I can break 100, and it's just like, yeah, I'm bored.
yeah. It's like it's it's what's the point now almost.
Yep.
And part of it too, I think that there is a I mean, I'm a open sharing kind of guy. Like I don't usually keep a lot of trade secrets when it comes to people who are up and comers and want pro tips. I usually try to share as much
Hmm.
as I can. But
Yep.
Instagram now has just become a giant. I think one of the guys I had on before called an echo chamber of
Yep.
ideas where, you know, I kind of am not motivated to post some of my work just because I don't necessarily want to see 10,000 images that look just like the stuff I shot or, you
Yep.
know,
Yeah, and I mean, I think Liam touched on that on too on your last one. You know,
yep,
when he and I have talked about that quite a bit too. Is like, it just becomes an echo chamber, and it just
oh yeah.
like it's the same thing over and over again. And how do you
Yeah.
make it different?
Well, and the thing that's funny is like there's only so many ways you can shoot a gun.
Mhm.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? Um,
Yep.
and so I think that what's interesting about that though is going back to a video standpoint is it's driving the need for narrative, right? Like
Yes.
people have seen all the great imagery, and I'm like you got some absolutely just slam dunk work here, man. Like
Thank you. Appreciate it.
watching even just in that little fast forward, going from like what you were doing with cell phone and early imagery to now like everything is you've added a lot of contrast, you've added a lot of color, a lot of your composition. I think is what crushes in your work, right?
Yep.
Where I see a lot of similarities in the way we shoot because I like how you go for the shot that's not necessarily. Maybe I'm wrong here, but are you the kind of guy that looks for the artistic shot over the perfect shot, where you see something that maybe not exactly perfect, but it has character, or do you go for the perfect shot?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. One of the things that I did notice and I think set my work apart and does set my work apart, is early on when I first started looking at images that were being shot, for gun content in the space. Especially one that stands out in my head is I remember Nikon ads, and they're not, in the shooting hunting space anymore.
Right.
But like Nikon ads, I remember being really bad about it at the time. Their images they were using were, don't get me wrong, they were beautiful images, but everything was too perfect. You
Mm-hmm.
could see that they were using flash,
Mm-hmm.
um, because everything's lit perfectly. Well, I've never been. It's rare to go on a hunt and have the lighting be perfect. Like,
Yep.
you know what I mean. Like it screamed fake. It
Yep.
screamed like this is a marketing image, and like I try and shoot for realism. I want to look
There it is.
real. I want it to
Yep.
look authentic. Yeah, we're having to stage a lot of the advertising type images. It just is what it is. But that doesn't mean that I can't use the correct gear. It doesn't mean that I can't use people who are legit hunters, legit shooters,
Mm-hmm.
who do that, who live that every day. That we can't, set things up in a realistic manner, and I work really hard to do that and still make it look eye catching and interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I was going for because I shoot the same way. Like I look for I want it to be real, right? And that's I
Hmm.
think one of the big things. I mean, that comes from you're the kind of guy that likes to get out into the wilderness and shoot the stuff, right? And
Yeah.
there's a flavor that comes from a real life, and I think that I think that's important, right? A lot of times when you're doing a photo shoot that's staged, you're not actually hunting, right? You're
Hmm.
not shooting at game. There's not like this, hey, we got to be quiet and move quiet because we're actually trying to shoot something here, right?
Yep.
In
Yep.
real life, people's if you're working with people who are hunters, their body language changes when they're
Hmm.
stalking, right? And you
Yep.
can't just be like, "Hey, pretend you're stalking," because it's not the same. The psyche is different, and that impacts their body language and the way they move, the way they stand, a lot of even the way their muscles move, right, in the neck and the face. And so, yeah, your work has got real life stamped all over it. So good for you. You're
Thank you.
crushing it. I love your stuff. I would Yeah, spent a couple of days looking over your work when I knew you were going to be on the show, and I dig it. So way to crush.
Well, I appreciate it.
And dude, I
It's a
love
lot of fun.
seeing, yeah, man, I love seeing the progression, right? I mean, just look at where we're at from where we started, right? Like
Hmm.
totally night and day different. Love it. Do you prefer how much? We got some studio stuff in here, but are you mostly lifestyle out in the environment, or how much time do you spend in studio?
Uh, I spend a lot of time out in the environment. Like that's my preferred thing to do. I
Yep.
wouldn't say I'm the best studio photographer. It's not my biggest strength. I like capturing stuff out in the field more, for sure.
Dude, look at this.
Yeah,
High speed.
this is a fun project. This is a really fun project.
Very cool.
So
When was this?
last
How long ago was this? This was
this was
24
last
May.
year. Now it was 2024,
Yep.
beginning of 2024. That was for not. This was for Nosler. This is just the footage, just some of just different clips that were fun. I work with Nosler a lot. They're awesome people. John and Maddie over there are just great humans. And John reached out to me and goes, "Hey, we want to do a bunch of ballistic testing slow mo footage. Uh, can you do that?" And I'm like, I mean, I don't know. I've never run one of those cameras, and
Dude,
they're like
that's
two hundred
that's a
thousand
that
dollars.
cigar shot is sick, dude. That's the
Yeah,
coolest thing.
yeah, that was a brainchild. I was like, that would be cool. But yeah, like I was like, I don't know, like I don't can't imagine it would be that difficult to run one. But they're $200,000. I don't know where we rent one for sure. And he's like, well, figure it out and get back to me. All right, because I'd already done quite a few projects with them. They're like, yeah, we like working with you. We want to work with you. Like, we'd rather use you than somebody that we don't know. So I actually rented that camera from Bryce,
I was gonna
over at High
say,
Speed.
yeah, ballistic
Yeah,
high speed, yeah,
High
nice.
Speed. Yeah. So um, he was awesome to work with. He walked me through the camera over the phone, and I was like, okay, yeah, this isn't that bad. I can do this, and like, it was no problem. We set that thing up, and that was definitely checking something off of my personal bucket list,
Dude,
for sure, because like that's I grew up watching MythBusters. I remember watching that show. It's the same camera they're using on that show. It's all Phantom cameras. As they're blowing stuff up and shooting stuff and all that kind of thing. I remember coming home. From on Sunday after church and like turning on MythBusters and watching all the crazy stuff that they're blowing up.
yep,
And so like getting to play with that for a week, and just shoot all of this crazy footage was just so much fun. It was so much fun.
yeah,
We
dude.
were like, I had a buddy of mine come over, a day or two before we started the full shoot, to test the camera and make sure that we knew how to run everything. And he's an ex sniper, and we're out here behind my office. I have a shooting range, and we're shooting all these different things, and then running over to the camera and just like giggling like schoolgirls, watching this stuff just slowly come apart.
Dude,
It
yeah,
was so
man.
much fun.
Yeah, dude, high speed, man. That stuff's crazy. I don't know how to. It's magic, man. It's
Yeah,
magic.
magic.
That stuff's crazy. I mean, that's a part of the world that just blows me away. High speed is something I haven't had an opportunity to mess with a lot. I had Bryce on not too long ago, and we were talking about just the complexities of high speed cameras, and
Yep.
I would love to play with one just to see, right?
Yeah.
Like, what does it
Yeah.
look like when you shoot a cigar straight down the barrel with
Hmm.
a high speed camera? What does that look like? Well, now we know because you did it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so cool, man. Yeah, your work's crazy. Way to crush, Morgan. That's awesome. So,
Thank you.
moving forward here, I think you already kind of sort of mentioned it. One of the running questions on the Guns and Cameras podcast is the "What is your oh shit moment?" story. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I think the ranch story is pretty high up there on the oh shit charts for that story. But if you have a close second, what's the next oh shit moment story that comes to mind?
One of the other ones that it wasn't for me so much, but like I was seriously concerned about the individual, was I was on a shoot. It was a off-road shoot, with four-wheelers and stuff, and we were in the backcountry of Wyoming, and I'm really good about anytime I do those shoots. I always take full trauma kit with me. Like I
Hmm.
have medical training, trauma training. I take usually a trauma course every couple of years just to refresh
Hmm.
myself, and stay relevant on it. And that trip, I just forgot. I forgot to bring it, and we were going up a more technical part of the trail. This older gentleman, really nice guy, don't think he had a ton of experience on a quad. Uh, Started coming up this hill, and I'm taking photos of him. I'm at the top of the hill. I'm taking photos of him. Everybody else is at the bottom of the hill, and I see him choose the wrong path. He chose the wrong track, and it started to go over. And I'm taking photos, and camera. I just totally forgot about camera. Didn't care. Just gone. Like just dropped it from standing height. Just whatever. Because I see him going over. I'm like, oh no. Like this could be bad. We're miles in the backcountry. We don't have cell service. Like panic, hits the ground. I take off down the hill. The quad is laying over him, fully flipped over. Uh, and I get down there. I'm like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, I'm fine. It's not pressing on me." He had landed in a ditch, a divot in the trail, and it was on him, but it wasn't pressing on him. So just got super lucky. I grabbed the thing and it had him help as much as he could and flipped it back up. And I jumped on it and drove it the rest of the way up past this section. But like that scared me for a minute.
Dude.
I was like, oh,
Hey man, make friends with the photographer because they're the unsung heroes of the business. It's
yeah.
like, bro.
Because no one else was close. Everybody else is like 300 yards away, and I'm like right there. And I'm just like, oh no.
Dude. That's a
Yeah.
good one, man. I'm sure you have many. I can't imagine. I mean, when you're traveling that much and you're doing hunting stuff, there's always something that happens, right?
Yeah, there certainly is. There's
Man.
there's always something, but been lucky. Haven't had anything too bad, thankfully.
Yeah, good. Well, knock on wood, right? Hey, so who's inspiring you right now in the industry? Where are you drawing inspiration from? Who's crushing it in your opinion?
Man, there's so many good dudes. Like the guys, I would say that a lot of the places that I get inspiration, or get really inspired by, are actually outside of our industry. I like to look at different stuff.
Yeah.
Well, like Aaron Brimhall, really like his stuff. Ben Christensen, Chris Douglas, photo. Those guys are all solid. As far as like in our industry, like Lee Kojo's, I've always looked up to his work. Really phenomenal photographer. His work's been everywhere. I've never met him. I have several friends that are mutual friends with him, but I've heard nothing but good, and his work's freaking fantastic.
Cool.
Justin Holt, is a great dude, really talented. Liam Ward, great dude, really talented. Nick Thrain, or not Thrain, Traherne, sorry, Nick Traherne is a good dude. He's on the Cabela signature events, and he's talented as well. Even though he shoots Nikon, which I give him shit about on a regular basis.
Dude, there's a few, man. There's a few. Every once in a while, you run into somebody. I shot Nikon for a while. They're
I'm
interesting.
sorry. Just kidding.
It wasn't I didn't pay for it. It was the university.
But no, there's so many good dudes, man. Yeah, so many good dudes who are talented, who are doing good things. Yeah.
So where do you see? I mean, you've been working and shooting professionally, kind of through. I don't want to say it like as the golden years of gun content, but kind of, right?
Yeah.
Where do you see the industry going in the next couple of years?
Man, I don't know. It's a hard thing to say. It it depends on how bad censorship gets on Instagram and those platforms. If it gets pushed off of there, I don't know that it's going to go anywhere else. The problem is like I don't like Instagram that much as it is anyway. It's kind of a
Yeah.
time suck. Like I like seeing good work, but now so often, like I like seeing photos. Like I like seeing photos, and so much of the time it's just like TikTok videos and stuff. And it's like I don't care about that. Like I just want to see really good images. Like that's what I want to see. That's the people I follow. That's those stuff that I follow. So I don't. I genuinely, man, I think that's anybody's best guess as to what the future holds, and I think it's kind of outside of our control. Like if they push everybody off of Instagram, are they going to go to another platform? I don't know that they will. We've tried that before, and it hasn't really worked that well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, dude. I don't know. I want to support the new applications and stuff that are coming up because I want to believe that can be successful, but I also know how the world works, man. And it's like, money and power are pretty tough to beat when it comes to the guys that own the internet space, man. I mean,
Well,
that's
and I think it's important too, that if we can stay on the mainstream platforms, I think that's important because
mhm.
it allows society, people who aren't necessarily gun people, to still stumble across some of that content sometimes and
Mhm.
realize that they don't live in their little vacuum, their little like sphere, their like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? That there are lots of normal people who
Yep.
own firearms.
Yeah, man. I was just talking to I had a guest on last night, and we were talking about how I think this, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but my gut is telling me that I think that the our industry in specifically is incubating the next generation of great storytellers,
Mm-hmm.
because we have the benefit of working in an industry, being supported by brands in content that say, tell the story the way it needs to be told, right? There's
Yeah.
not like there's not generally a, hey, that's too intense, or that's that's going to
Yeah.
offend somebody, or that's going to be
Yep.
what every other creator in mainstream media is facing is this, like, we have to water everything down. But in our industry, it's like, no, how can we concentrate it more? How can we be louder?
Yeah.
How can we be more intense? How can we tell the story more truthfully? And I think that's an edge that our creators in this space are being given, that is appetizing to people who have been consuming this watered down narrative for so long, where they're like, dude, I just want a real good story, right?
Yep.
And we're our industry are the guys that are going to be making those stories, right?
Hmm.
Because we're
Well, and
not going
it
to.
just comes back to people like genuine things, whether it's
Oh, yeah.
people or whether it's stories or whatever it is. They want genuine. Like that's what gets people interested.
Yeah.
Fake will get you by for a while, but people will figure it out eventually.
Yeah. So I think there's potential. I'm pretty encouraged with where we're at. I think we got guys like you and Liam and some of the other people I've had on the podcast that are just like, are kind of in this point in their careers where we've been kind of through the fire of the gun tuber world, and now we're looking to, like, at least for me, right? I'm looking for, how can I become a person that fosters the next generation of creators, right? I love shooting pictures, I love shooting videos, but I
Yep.
also know that I can't do that for the rest of my career because it's hard work, right? Like, I'd like
Hmm.
to be able to teach, I'd like to be able to inspire, and it's partly why Guns and Cameras exist. But that leads on to this question of, do you still have a white whale that you're pursuing? You said you haven't been to Africa, you're going, right? But is there a
Yeah.
white whale, like the photo that you're trying to you want to shoot still, or do you feel like you've got it all?
I mean, there's always going to be things that I want to do, or people that I want to work with, but really moving forward, like my goal just as a business in general, as I'm really blessed to be in a situation where I don't have to take on clients or take on work that I don't want to take on. Like I
Nice.
can
Yeah.
be choosy and I can be picky at this point. Like if it doesn't, if the work doesn't interest me, if it doesn't fit with what I'm already doing, or if it's not somebody that I really want to work with because I like them as a person or as a company, I don't have to take it.
Mm.
So my goal moving forward is to do as much work with good people and people that I like to work with and companies that I like to work with as possible, and collaborate with as many of those brands at the same time as possible. If I can do work for Vortex and for Nosler and for Savage and for Silencer Central, um, and for iRay and for all these different companies or Macmillan or Defiance, all these companies at the same time on a bigger project where they're going to get more exposure, I want to do that. Like that's
Yeah.
what I want to do. And if I can bring in other videographers, other photographers to help me with big projects like that, awesome. Like I want to do that, and I do on occasion. Like that's something that I do somewhat regularly. So that I guess that's really the big thing is I want it to not feel so much like a job. I just want it to feel like it's fun. I'm working with my friends. I'm working with people I like to work with companies I like to work with, doing projects that I want to do.
That's awesome. I love it. I was talking to Liam on his episode. I'm like, he mentioned that he thinks that there should be like a gun show for
Mm.
photos, only like an exhibition. I just love the play on words with Guns and Cameras. There's so much crossover so
Oh no,
far.
I think that's awesome. Like I think
But
that would be a cool thing. And like it'd be cool to see more excitement about people training and stuff too. Like
mm,
that's one of the things that me personally, I feel very strongly about is, and some people may disagree with it, but um, as you and I and others in the industry, whether you're marketing or photographers, videographers,
Hmm.
or just work in the firearms shooting, hunting space, I think it's on us to hold ourselves to a higher standard than people doing the same type of work in other industries. Because at the end of the day, the products that we push, that we promote, that we sell, can mean the difference between life and death
Yeah.
potentially,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Um, so if you're not training, if you're not, making an effort to go to a couple of classes a year and do those types of things, and you're in this space, in this industry, I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice.
Hmm.
I think you're doing the industry a huge disservice.
Yeah.
I think it's an important thing to do. Uh, I think it not only is it valuable in that way, but it's also valuable, and it gives you ideas for how to do more creative work and how to set things up in a better way. I can't tell you
100%.
how many classes I've taken where I've learned things and been like, "Oh, dude, I can use this in a photo. This will look awesome."
Hmm. Dude,
Different
100%.
position.
I mean, the thing is, and I think here's something that I think is interesting for people to know about our industry, especially the photographers in our industry, right? Not only are they good with cameras, a lot of them are also hella good shooters, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
because they pay attention, right? You got to know your subject, and a lot of us care deeply about, like, whenever I shoot a training, I soak up as much as I can like a sponge, and
Yep.
then when I'm editing, I soak up as much more as I can like a sponge, and then when I go to the range, I go and I try to process and unpack all that stuff because, again, yeah, safety is huge. That's important to
Mm-hmm.
know how the gun functions, how it operates, where you can be to get a shot that maybe is going to be new
Yep.
but also safe. But also, I think that there's just a genuine love for the subject that we're shooting. And so far, everybody I've talked to on this podcast, all of them have known as much about how to safely operate a weapon effectively as much as they know about that as they do about shooting pictures, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I think that, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think that the training is important. One of the things that I have kind of in mind that I might try to do this year, we'll see, is doing a creative camp out where I bring guys like, if you're down, guys like you,
Yeah.
some of the
I'd be
other people
down.
that have been on the podcast
Absolutely.
that are willing to teach classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
To, iron sharpens iron, right?
Yep. Yep.
We all have kind of a different flavor and a different specialty, right? And a way
Yep.
that we shoot that I think is valuable, and cross training is important. And I think it'd be cool to get a bunch of photographers, some OGs together, put on some workshops, just spend some time together, create some content. So I'm thinking I'm trying to brainstorm that out and see what that might look like. But
Yeah,
if
I
you're
love that
down,
idea. I think that's super valuable. Like in creating relationships with other people in the space who work differently than you, because
yeah,
like you said, we don't all work the same way. And it doesn't mean that one person's right or one person's wrong. It just means it's different.
yep,
Um, and it's always I I always think working with someone is better than working against them. If I
oh
can
yeah,
make a friend, if I can work with someone else in the space who does similar work that I do, that's great. I don't want you to be an enemy. That's the last thing I want. I want to work with other talented individuals. Like
hmm,
that's the best possible scenario. I mean, there's tons of work. There's no shortage of work. I turn down work all the time,
yep,
and I send work to other friends of mine in the space who do the same type of work that I do on a regular basis.
yep.
Um, I don't. I just don't see the need to have people that want to fight each other for work. Like, there's no need for that. You just devalue each other's work at that point. So why wouldn't you do collaborations like that where you teach each other what you're doing, how you work, and then maybe they can get value out of it, maybe you can get value out of it.
Hmm.
Everyone comes away a better person.
Oh yeah, there's always something to learn. Always be a student, right? All
Yep.
right, man. So we're kind of touching on the subject, but we're at an hour 30, so I'm gonna probably wrap you out here. Dude, I would love to have you back on as a return guest just to talk about some of your exciting adventures overseas.
Yeah, man.
But what is a word of wisdom you could leave with somebody who's new to guns and cameras or is interested? What would you tell somebody who's just starting out? Something you wish you knew when you just started out. What is that thing?
I mean, really the biggest thing is just treat people the way that you want to be treated. Like, treat
Hmm.
your clients, treat your customers the way you want to be treated, and uh, protect your integrity and your name, like it's the most valuable thing on the planet, because it is. Like, it really, really is. If you have a good name, if you have a good reputation, doors will open for you that will not open for other people. So if you can treat people, anybody, whether it's a client or whether it's someone like, man, I get phone calls on a regular basis from potential clients that ask me questions about the industry, or ask me, hey, what would you do about this? Or hey, what would you do about that? And I've had several, quite a few actually, that I'm like, hey man, like, I'll answer your questions here. I've got 30 minutes, but I don't have time for you to be a client. Like, not trying to be rude. I can't add you in. You don't really fit in with what I'm doing right now, or I just don't have time. But here's some answers to your questions. I hope this helps. And here's a couple recommendations for where you might want to go to find more information or find somebody that can help you. I cannot tell you how many letters or emails I've gotten from those people at later dates saying, "Man, I can't thank you enough. Like, you pointed me in the right direction, and it was you didn't make a dime off of it. It wasn't it wasn't monetary. It was just you just did it."
Yep.
And like stuff like that, people don't forget that stuff, and they will come back to you at a later date when they do have something that you're interested or are want to do, or maybe you need to be involved in, and you will be.
It's about the long game, man. It's the long game.
Yep.
I love that. All right, Morgan, bro, thank you so much for gifting us with your time, some of your wisdom, your stories, showing off some of your work. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this podcast and you don't already follow Just Instinct or Morgan Gregory on social media, go find his Instagram. It's just.instinct. I'm going to put it up right here. Go check him out. Follow his Instagram. Send him a message. Tell him how awesome his work is and how much you're inspired by his stories, because I know I am. Morgan, really quick, if somebody wants to work with you, it sounds like there's no shortage of those people, but if they want to work with you, how do they get a hold? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Email, just Morgan at justinstinctcreative.com is, I'm super responsive, or DMs on Instagram, or just go to my website. My phone number's on there as well. I mean, any of those ways is totally doable.
Right on. We're going to put those up there at the end of the show. Morgan, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. This has been Guns and Cameras. Stay tuned. We got a lot more good stuff coming. Have a great night.
Okay. Yep, I think we got to go with the 870. I don't think that there's a spider or scorpion on the face of this planet that could survive a dead-on shot from one of these. And I know because I watched Eight-Legged Freaks, another great film. If you haven't watched it, I recommend it. You guys, that's the end of this week's episode of Guns and Cameras featuring Mr. Morgan Gregory. Morgan is wicked talented and an awesome guy, and I think key takeaways for me are to under-promise and over-deliver. So thank you for that wisdom, Morgan. I'm definitely going to be rolling that into my toolbox, and you guys should too. My friends, if you don't already follow Morgan, he has two accounts. The first is at just.instinct on Instagram. The second is at Morgan_W_Gregory. Go follow both of those accounts. Send him a DM. Tell him how awesome his work is, because it's pretty awesome, and he goes to some pretty cool places. You guys, thank you for watching. Stay tuned. We got a lot more cool stuff coming. I got a lot in the works. Guns and Cameras is only taking off, so I appreciate it. We got some great guests and some good information coming in the next couple weeks, so be sure to stay tuned. You guys stay safe, stay vigilant, have a great day, and if you see a spider, kill it. Have a good day, guys.